Hopefully, you're all in pretty good shape on your research paper. Um, by now, I have to believe that many of you have written the bulk of it. I know that all of you had introductions because we did them in class. And I know that you got the idea that your introduction should lead directly to what the rest of your paper is going to say. Okay? That's why we did outlines in class, of course. Or did we do outlines on video? Whichever. We did outlines anyway. Um, so, you can see the whole thing is lining up. Okay? Um, and I'm sure that all of you are putting worthwhile effort into doing all of that. In the lesson for today, what I put on Moodle is something that I really want you to understand carefully. So many students do a really good job on gathering information and even on writing the body of the paper itself. But so many students lose way too many points on the format things. And the format things you are completely in control of, okay? You're the one who can control how many points you do not lose on format. I start out with everybody getting 100, all format points that they have coming, okay? So I'm assuming that all of you are going to do all the format stuff totally correctly. So if you do, then great, no problem. But it's easy to lose credit on format, and with all the work you've put into a research paper, I don't want to see that happen, okay? So let's talk about putting together your list of references, okay? Because that has to be formatted exactly correctly. If you don't format it correctly, you'll lose points. And that's a shame, again, because you've done the hard part. Now it's just kind of like following the rubric, following the pattern for each of these things, okay? So there are some, well, let's go back a step. What in the past you've called bibliography, or you've called list of works cited, in APA is referred to as references, okay? Bibliography, works cited, references, they're all the same thing, but the APA name for them is references. So when you go to list your references, first of all, they go on a separate sheet of paper. It's not like you get to the end of your research paper and then you just list them right after that. No, this will be the last page in your paper, and it is a separate page all by itself, okay? So I asked you to have at least 6 references, so I hope you do. If you have 5, okay, you have 5. My concern is, at this point, hopefully you're about done with your research, and that you start, and you've done a significant part of doing the writing, and so you can list your references accurately, okay? So, how do you make sure you're doing that? Well, first of all, I'm going to suggest that you have paper and pencil in front of you, and I'm going to give you 6 or 7 different tips on the reference page. I already gave you one, single sheet at the end, okay? But I'm going to suggest that you write down each of these points that I make with you on this video so that you do your references correctly. Because if you mess them up, you'll lose points, and that's really unfortunate. And as I'm sure you're aware, we've been talking about the research paper a significant amount all semester. So your grade on the research paper will be a significant factor in your final grade. Okay? So again, rule number 1 in this, and stop this wherever you need to and restart it, it's okay. Rule number 1 is your references go on a separate sheet of paper at the end. It's the last sheet in your research paper, okay? Secondly, there is a sample list of references in your book, and let me check. I'm quite sure it's 324 because I checked this 2 minutes ago, but let me check again just to be certain. Yes, in your book, there are references. There is a list of references on page 324 and 325. Okay, so if you have your book with you, you can see what references are supposed to look like. Now, that being said, some of you may have been sharing books or whatever, so I photocopied part of that page 324 because I wanted to show you what your reference page should look like. So hopefully you can see this out. Notice the outline of that last page, and notice in dark letters at the top of that page is the word references. The word references is centered side to side, and it's down an inch or two from the top. Okay, if you only have 5 or 6 references, you can go down farther than that so that your whole list gets somewhat centered, but it's not something I'm terribly concerned about you fighting. Now, you may be seeing all of this in like mirror image. I don't know exactly, because I'm putting it on a camera, but I'm hoping then when it shows it to you, you'll see it in normal. You won't see it the way I'm seeing it because I'm seeing it in mirror image. Okay, but again, notice the word references in bold print and centered at the top of the page. Then immediately double spaced under that, okay? Double spaced under that, no extra line skipped. You see the start of the first reference. So you don't double space after that word references, okay? So this is tip number 3. You double space this entire page, okay? The entire page list of references is double spaced the same way your whole research paper is spaced. Your whole research paper is double spaced all the way through. Your list of references is double spaced the same way. Okay? Now notice tip number 4. In the upper left-hand corner? That doesn't make sense. As I'm facing it, it's the right, so it must be the upper left-hand corner, is the page number, okay? So you put a page number on your reference sheet too. Now, if page numbers are something that you have to struggle with on your research paper, then don't fight it. Don't try to put page numbers on. Do them by hand. I have no qualms about you numbering your pages by hand, okay? That's fine with me, okay? But if your word processing package numbers it, then make sure that you space down far enough so you got to a new sheet of paper so that your references go on a separate sheet. Okay? Now, back when we first started talking about the research paper, the first thing I talked to you about was putting each reference you were using on a separate note card. And I laid out the format for you. I wrote it on the board for what you do with each type. And let me see if that's simplified on here. Yes. On page 300, it tells you the order that you put things in for your references. So for referencing a book, you'll start with the author's last name, comma, and then first initial, okay? So last name, comma, first initial. That's the first thing in each of these references if you have an author. The next thing, and then a period after that, first initial of the first name, okay? The next thing you have is the year of publication, okay? The year it was published, and you put that in parentheses. Okay? Then the next thing you have is the title of the book, okay? And you italicize the title of the book. You don't underline it, you italicize it, okay? This is APA format. It's different from MLA. It's different from Turabian. This is how it goes. So it's, this is just the way it works. So please, do things this way. And then the last thing is the publisher. You list the publisher's name. Okay, so that's a works cited for a book, and again, the format for that is on 300. The format for a print periodical is on 304. And again, with each of these authors things, it's last name first, comma, first initial. Okay, so let me give you the order for print publication. Author, publication date, article title, okay, and you do not italicize or enclose article titles in quotation marks. Do not, okay? You just put down the title. It's just in standard typing. And you capitalize only the first word. Then the periodical title, okay? So author, publication date, article title, periodical title, volume and issue numbers if they give you those, and you're putting periods between each of these, okay, all the way through periods. And then all of the pages from the periodical that article appears on. So we have author, publication date, article title, periodical title, volume and issue numbers, and page numbers. And again, I wrote all that on the board, so you may have that note already, and it appears in your book on 304. But in case you didn't have that, hopefully you stopped the video and you wrote that stuff down. Okay. Articles from database, which might be most of your stuff. Okay. Again, we start with author, last name, first, comma, first initial, period. Publication date, then the title of the article, and because this is coming from a database, you capitalize the first word of the title. So I'm hoping you're writing this down, because there's all these crazy, fussy little things. I don't make these rules. I can only tell you what they are. Then if it's coming from a periodical, the periodical title, the volume and issue number, page numbers, and then the internet address, the retrieval information, where you got it from, so that somebody can go on the internet and find exactly where you got it. You give them absolutely everything they need, okay? And again, that's in your book on 308. Reports and works from websites. Author, if you have one. Publication date, they usually give you that. The title of the work, and then the website, okay? What they call retrieval information in your book. And that's on 310. Okay, so that should pretty much cover it. Keep in mind, what you're trying to do. Now, let me say this. Many of the internet articles don't give you an author, okay? So then you're going to alphabetize that by the title, okay? So back to the tips that we're giving you, and I'll repeat that again later on. My wife is texting stuff down here with my grandkids. I can see it popping up on my phone. Sorry to bother you. Okay, so back to our tips that I was giving you on setting up your reference correctly. Okay. We talked, first of all, about a separate sheet, number one. We talked about the word references, centered, and in bold lettering. Okay. We talked about the page number. Okay. The next thing is in your reference, your list of references, or your whatever you want to call it, works cited, but in APA it's called list of references. We use reverse indentation. Reverse indentation. So notice each first line starts at the margin, and then the succeeding lines in that entry are all indented. Itab. You just tab over for each of the succeeding lines in that entry. Okay. Oh, and again, we're double spaced all the way through here. You can tell that by looking at it. The whole thing is double spaced all the way through. Okay. So the whole list of references is set up in alphabetical order by the author's last name, okay, or by the first word in the entry. So again, separate sheet, references, bold, page number, reverse indentation, whole thing set up in alphabetical order by the first word in the entry, and the first word in the entry is going to be the author's last name if you have an author. If you don't, then it's going to be the title of the article, okay? Because even if you go, onto the internet and you just type in a topic and it comes up and there's information there, then that's the title of the article, okay? So, this is how you set the whole thing up. Again, so these are the tips that make you do it right. So you double space the whole page. So again, reverse indentation, instead of reversing or indenting the first line in each entry, the first line in each entry comes to the margin, and then each succeeding line in each entry is indented. Then down here we get to a second entry in the references. Okay, so this one comes back over to the margin. And then the second line in there is indented, and the third line is indented. Then we get to a third entry. And so we come to back over to the margin. Okay, see what I mean by reverse indentation? Okay, we're reversing what we do with our indentation. Again, the whole thing is double spaced. Lots of students make the mistake, and it's a mistake, of double spacing between entry number 1 and entry number 2, or between entry number 2 and entry number, etc. No double spacing. You just double space the whole thing. It's space-wise, it's set up the same way as your entire paper, which is double spaced. Okay? And again, the whole thing is in alphabetical order by the first word in the entry. Usually that's an author, but if you don't have an author, then it's going to be a title. Okay? And it may not even be a formal title. It may just be a subject heading from the internet. That's what you put it under. And if it's from the internet, make sure that you give the full web address. Okay? So don't fight with these list of references. Okay? Just follow these simple rules. And I'll repeat them for you one more time. Okay? Or at least one more time. Who knows? I talk too much anyway. On a separate sheet at the end, number 1. Number 2, bold-faced, in the middle, the word references. And only the R in the references is capitalized. Not the whole word, only that initial R. Okay? Page number, up in the upper, as I'm looking at it, it's the right-hand corner, but as you're typing it, it's going to be the left-hand corner, I guess. Okay? Then the entire thing is double spaced all the way through. Okay? We use reverse indentation. So the first line in each entry goes to the margin, and each succeeding line in that entry will be indented a tab, 5 spaces, 6 spaces. Okay? You set up the whole list of references in alphabetical order by the first word in the entry. If you have an author, that's going to be the author's last name, which is why you put the author's last name first. That's the simple logic of it. Otherwise, why would you do that? It doesn't make sense. But that's why that's done. Author's last name first, because that's how you alphabetize your list of references. Okay? If you have 2 books by the same author, okay, this is a little aside, but it does happen. If you use 2 works by the same author, then again, you're going to alphabetize in alphabetical order, but then between those 2, you'll put the one first where alphabetically the title comes first. Okay? Simple enough. I think that's kind of simple logic. Okay? What else can I tell you about it? Keep in mind the job is so that the reader can get exactly to where you're going. So this format, gets set up exactly this way, and the book tells you how to do it. But those are the big things. Okay, reverse indentation, no double. You just double space all the way through. You put it all in alphabetical order by the first word in the entry, and then in the reverse indentation, the first word in each line goes to the margin. Each succeeding line in that entry is indented. Okay. Again, sample works cited. Reference list on 324. So you don't use the words works cited at all. You don't use the words bibliography at all. In here, it's called references. Okay. So that should give you a pretty good handle on setting up your list of references. If you set up the cards and put each reference that you had on a separate note card, as I mentioned to you the very first time we started talking about research paper, then all you have to do is alphabetize those note cards and type this out in that order. Okay? So good luck with it. You know how to get in touch with me. Okay? And then today, this is for Wednesday's class. You'll have another video on Friday for Friday's class. And again, they're already posted, so whenever you find them is fine. And then we'll get together on Wednesday, December 8th. And our job that day will be to answer last-minute questions that you have, because you may still be a little bit confused about it. So if you have last-minute questions, that's what we're doing on December 8th. Your paper is due on December 10th. Okay? So questions, you know where to get me. Keep in mind these simple things. Hopefully you wrote them down, and have a good day.